Om Shanti. So now we're looking at obstacles. We began the question of obstacles just at the end of the last session, that there's a weight. And that is the obstacle of existing karmic account or karmic bondage, which holds you down or holds you back. So that is one obstacle. So if you have a karmic account, which is in the way of your meditation, then you need to simply keep on resisting it by increasing your yoga until it pops through. Because when you're resisting it, what's going on? If you're not resisting it, what's going on? So when you're not resisting it, you say, okay, I'm not having a good meditation, so I'll go do something else. And that's perfectly fine. And then you come back to it later and maybe you get through. But anytime that you're putting in the effort to sit in meditation, to establish yourself in soul consciousness and remembrance, you're taking power, you're accumulating energy, and at some point, your energy is greater than the karmic account. And the other thing about karmic accounts is that, or you can say, not just karmic accounts, but this phenomenon called sin. So in Gyan, sin doesn't really refer to an individual event that happened. You did such and such a something on such and such a day, and that's a sin. It's rather a tendency to do something which is not in your own best interests repeatedly. That's the thing. So there is a question of repetition. And it is also said that if you do any particular sin that you notice, it's never going to be the first time you ever did it. And I'm not talking about sins like murdering people or something rather big like that, but the little things that one does quite easily, but which nevertheless adds up to weight. So if you do something very frequently, each time you do it, you add 1 more kilo to the weight. So then it becomes quite a lot more difficult to not do it. And in this respect, these sins are similar to addictions, because an addiction is something that you are compelled, internally compelled to repeat again and again and again, and maybe with increasing frequency, and then it becomes very, very difficult to stop it because of the increased repetition. And in this regard, it is said that if you practice to meditate again and again and again, then you're doing something like the opposite of a negative action. You're doing something again and again and again. Every time you do it, you might not add a kilo, maybe you add 500 grams, whatever, but you're adding weight, which is going against the weight of the sin. And the idea is to have so much strength that the sin is completely counterbalanced by your spiritual power. So what happens as you continue to accumulate the force of meditation is we have, as I mentioned at the beginning of the day, when you're doing Raj Yoga, we have Gyan, Yoga, Dharana, and service. So service is also something that will add to your weight. of positive energy. So when you do service, it means that you do a form of pure karma which benefits someone else. And this gives you extra weight, positive weight. And so this is basically why you do service. And so generally speaking, service is something that connects someone with God, because that's the best benefit that someone can have. So if you give water to a thirsty person and they really, really need it, then that's very, very good. If you give water to somebody who's not thirsty, it doesn't have much effect because they're not thirsty. They don't need it. So there's no what's known as a blessing. So if you give something to somebody that they really need, they experience it as a blessing from you, and they give you the energy of blessings, which is a sort of gratitude. And this energy adds to your weight of positive karma. So that's quite good. When you're calculating what you're doing in this way, and you're seeing that, okay, the aim of your practice is to have zero debt. And you don't want just zero debt, you want also a large amount of credit. So when working out about karma, you do it very similarly to how you manage money. This karma is very similar to money, it's wealth. And so when you're meditating in a regular way, consistent way, it's like you're putting money into your savings account, and you're also getting interest on it because savings accounts get interest. And you are doing this because you know that every so often, once in a while, you will experience some big karmic account which will come along, which will cost you a lot, but it's the day when it comes up for payment. So if you have already an accumulation, then you have what's necessary to settle that debt, and you can settle it. You know, so if all of a sudden a 10-ton block of concrete falls on your head, you have 11 tons of yoga to counteract it, and then it's manageable. But if you don't have anything, then you get crushed, you see. So it's quite good to look at it in that way, rather than I'm a good person or I'm a bad person. So in religion, they make you feel guilty. And they have this idea that if you feel really guilty, it'll make your sin go away. But Baba says that's not true. The more guilty you feel, that adds extra weight to the existing weight you have. So feeling guilty is very, very counterproductive. And so he says what you need to do is let go. And so if you're doing something bad, or you're about to do something bad, your conscience will wave a red flag and say, hey, guy, don't do that. That'll put you in loss. And you say, yeah, right, okay, I won't do that. So it's like there's two people. One is your conscience, which is also your intellect. And it is all the time guiding you, provided you listen to it. So if you don't listen to it, or you go against it, then it'll stop talking to you, and then you've lost a really good friend. So you don't want that. So if you go against your conscience, then you put yourself in quite a lot of debt, and you also are telling your conscience not to bother because you're not going to listen anyway. So go away. I'm fine. And then Baba will say, hey, you're not fine. Dodo, wake up. You've got a conscience. Listen to it. You need it. It's a very important part of your equipment, of your soul. So use it. And why would one go against one's conscience? When you have some sort of an addiction is described or defined as something that you do regardless of negative consequences. So normally, if you do an action which gives you negative consequences, you don't do it again because you don't want negative consequences. So then you don't, then it's not an addiction. But if you keep on doing it, regardless of the negative consequences, then you really have no power, which is also sometimes called willpower. Do you remember in the Murli of earlier, we talked about willpower. So willpower is like yoga power. If you decide, I am going to overcome this or that addiction that you decide that you might have, the best way to do it is to have very strong meditation because it'll give you the power that you don't have. It'll give you the willpower, and then you'll be able to do it. So otherwise, people who have an addiction, they cannot overcome it by willpower because they don't have any power. And when you are again and again doing something that is not in your best interests, you lose an enormous amount of power, and eventually it like crushes you altogether. So this is why addiction is bad. And everybody has one or another addiction. And these addictions are also indicators of some or another kind of trauma. Many people have, or everybody has some degree of trauma. And some people have heavy, heavy trauma. So if you have heavy, heavy trauma, then you need heavy, heavy yoga as well. And it's a very, very strong weight. And so you may need time to lift it up and throw it off, and a lot of strength. And the thing about these addictions is they tend to come with elastics, so you can throw them away, they come back, you know. And so that means to make it go away, you have to continue to increase your yoga power and continue to be vigilant that you don't allow it the opportunity to come back, because they tend to come back when you get slack in terms of your yoga practice. So that means yoga is about accumulating energy which you use on a daily basis, but you need to accumulate more than your daily expenditure. So you have to actually have quite a lot of yoga to actually remove or eliminate your negative karma. And of course, if you're doing that, then it means you need to be very aware that you don't do any negative karma to add to it. Because when you don't know anything about this and you do a negative karma, your weight that you accumulate is like 1 kilo. But if you do 1 kilo's worth of negative karma, knowing that that's what you're doing, then the weight is 10 kilos or 100 kilos. It's much more than just 1-to-1. And this is why once you're in Gyan, it's kind of dangerous, because you can't just say, oh, this is too hard, I'm not going to do it anymore, because the law of karma isn't going to say, okay, I'll let you alone. No, it says, you know, whether you like it or not, you know. So if you go against this, this is the cost. It costs much more when you know than when you don't know. So each of us is responsible for our own karma. Now, you may say, okay, there is a karmic account between two people who are in a relationship, like they're married or something. They're married, generally speaking, because there's already a karmic account. And the karmic account is connected with some particular behavior patterns in the relationship. And then you have to work it out with each other, because you see, if somebody is doing something wrong to you, according to you, that means you're taking sorrow. And so it happens that, generally speaking, in the case of domestic violence, the police will not get involved unless the victim brings a case against the violator, because the normal situation is that the victim will not prosecute, and then that puts the police in trouble. It wastes their time. And this is because the victim is attached to the predator. And so that also happens. It's also something important to know, that if you're going to allow someone to do something against you, then you are supporting them in that negative karma. And so you will suffer, and that's your own silly fault for doing that. And that's because you are dependent on that person. And the problem is, in the patriarchal society that we have, where women are possessions of their husbands, and their husband, according to the society, has a right to beat them up, kill them, whatever, because they're a possession, they're like a slave. And so then the society will support the aggressor against the victim. And most societies are like that. So that means you have to be very, very sharp, smart, strong, and resourceful to get yourself out of that situation. Which means it's a very heavy karmic account. So that is, in the world today, you have a lot of very, very bad situations like this, where the person who is being victimized really doesn't know how to take care of themselves, and they have no support, and the people who are damaging them have lots of support. But in your personal case, you're not in that situation. So this spiritual knowledge is not useful to make hypothetical circumstances which are not your personal circumstance in order to get an answer to your question. And most people do talk about hypothetical things. What if there's a green elephant crossing the road and it's a red light, and there's a mouse who doesn't like it? That's not of any consequence. So it's very important, you're the person who's practicing Raj Yoga. You're in a particular situation, so you have to deal with it. And if you're in a situation which is very dire, then you can take some advice. You can see if you can get some protection, but it's very specific to your personal case, depending on who you are, where you are, who is available, and so on. And you cannot make a general answer to a hypothetical question. It is not possible. So you have to look at your personal situation and talk about yourself, not anybody else. That's the thing. So, other obstacles. There are some people, they come to the Murli, and the minute it starts, they fall asleep, and the minute it finishes, they wake up again. And they are unable to hear the Murli, because as soon as it starts, they fall asleep. That's a wonder, right? And so there was somebody who had this situation and tried everything to be awake. Coffee, sticking pins in themselves, everything to be awake, and couldn't. And so they asked Daddy Janki, what's going on? And she thought about it for a good long while. And she said, well, there is something, some sort of karmic debt that is preventing you from hearing the word of God, right? So nobody can do anything about it. You must have done something, we don't know what, where it was such that your punishment is you can't hear Baba's word. So eventually this person sort of gave up the BK practice. This was many, many, many years ago. But that tells us that there are some souls who have such a heavy burden of karma that they are not able to take benefit from what Baba is offering in terms of study and yoga and everything, and nothing anybody can do. So that is a possibility. But that is not happening with any of you. You are good people, yes, of course. And so sometimes the amount of the quality of your meditation, the quality of your study, etc., is not at the level that it needs to be, and you're not doing what you need to do to get it to that level, either because you don't understand, or because you're lazy, or because something or another like that. And then in that case, the answer would be to just have a close look at how you're using your time and energy, and see if there's a way that you can intensify it in a doable manner. And if you wish to do it, you can. And so Baba gives us this expression, firm, determined thought. If you really, really want to achieve something like this good, then you have to apply your willpower. And that is a decision that you make. So you may have resistance, but your power of will needs to be stronger than the resistance. And so then that's up to you. You see, because if you look at yourself and you say, oh, I can't get up at Amritabela because I'm tired. Okay, you say like that. So then you have to go back to the night before and see, okay, what are you doing the night before? In what way are you wasting time? In what way are you not preparing yourself for the next morning? In other words, you're not taking it very seriously, right? And you think it'll happen by itself without you having to put in any effort, but it doesn't. And so that means it comes back to you, and it will be said, if you want to do this, you'll do it. Don't complain to me, why is this not happening? It's not happening because you're not making it happen, you see. And so it depends on your desire to achieve. And this part is called discipline. So discipline is to come to understand all the different elements that you can apply in your practice. And if you do that, then you will be successful. If you don't do that, you won't be successful. So then you have to make choices. about how much time and energy and attention you apply to this. If you want the results, then there's a certain amount of time and energy you have to put into it. And if you don't, then you won't get the results. And it's as simple as that. But some people don't like to face that reality. So facing what's going on is, I think, quite an important thing, where facing it results in you having to admit to the fact that if you want such and such a result, then you have to put in what it takes to get that result. And then it's your decision. But the cause of it is you. And so you can't really point the finger at anyone or anything else. So then that's a matter of discipline. Sometimes when you use the expression, I can't do this and I can't do that, usually it's not quite truthful, and the truth is that you don't want to. So if you don't want to do it, that's okay. It's not anybody else's problem except yours. But if you don't want to do it, then don't do it. You know, then you won't get what you could get if you did do it. So, and that's the situation for many, very many, because there is something called commitment. So again, going back to this expression, purusharat, that is doing something for the sake of yourself. If you realize how valuable it is, if you realize how valuable you are, and you give great importance to yourself, then you will do something really good for yourself because you value yourself. But if you are somebody with low self-esteem, you don't value yourself, then you will be inclined to disregard yourself, your value. And this low self-esteem is one of the things that happens as a result of trauma. There are some kinds of trauma where the messages that a person receives about themselves are very, very negative. So from a psychological point of view and from a judicial point of view, people who are neglected by their parents in childhood, they will usually end up as criminals. There's an absolute connection between serious criminals and being neglected as a child by your parents. And if we go to the Palivala, it's very clearly in black and white right there. One of the messages of Vainamoinen is in regard to one of the characters who, it might even be Lemminkainen, but I think it's one of the other ones, but I can't remember the name. Anyway, this character was absolutely neglected as a child, and he did huge amount of damage wherever he went. Now, he was I think he was Kullervo. He was Kullervo, you see. So Kullervo, in his story, his father was, there was some war going on, some battle. And so this child was the only survivor of this battle. And his father, mother, everybody was killed. And then he was captured by the opposite side and used as a slave. And then he was unable to be useful, so they moved him from A to B to C to D, but he was not well treated in his whole life. And in the end, he did like really, really bad damage, and then he got destroyed. And so then Vainamoinen said, let this be a lesson to you, never ever neglect full proper care of your child, because if you do that, you're producing a criminal. I see. So you have in the Kalevala some very, very important pieces of information which are ancient, but still which some societies don't pay attention to. And so wherever a child is neglected for one reason or another, and there are many situations where a person is born in not a good family, or the parents are not married, or nobody cares, or it's a drug addict mother, or whatever, this child will be a problem to the society. Not because the child is bad, but because it was not prepared for life, not loved, neglected, you see. So neglect is an issue. Now, it can be that you are a neglected child and you manage to survive and you come and become a Raj Yogi. You have to deal with that wound because it's a big one. And it will create all sorts of negative self-talk because you do not have any value for yourself. And so you have to overcome that and start getting a lot of value for yourself. So one of the things that Baba tells us, which is very helpful, and that is, he says, remember your titles. So you have titles. Every so often Baba will say, you are Swadarshan Chakradhari. Right? You are spinner of the cycle of self-realization. You are long lost and found again, most beloved child. You are all of these things. Every time you get a blessing card, you get some kind of nice statement about yourself that you say, oh yeah, that's a very nice. Right? But you have to take it seriously and take it in, because it gives you power to sort of believe in yourself more than you would as a result of being neglected. So Baba does actually provide you with all the necessary ingredients to be successful, but you don't always mix them into your cake. So you get not a very good cake to eat. And so this is why it's very important to study, because the study doesn't go to your mind, it goes to your intellect. So the intellect means conscience. That means your capacity to process concepts and to use them. So you listen to the Murli, good days, bad days, nighttime, daytime, wintertime, summertime, whatever the circumstances are, doesn't actually make any difference. How you feel when you're meditating depends. You know, you feel good, it's a sunny day, you have a nice meditation. You feel bad, it's a cloudy day, you don't have a nice meditation. This is all to do with moodiness. But information has nothing to do with your mood. You know, 2 + 2 is 4, whether you like it or not. Whether you enjoy that fact, or it's done in green or blue or purple ink, it doesn't make any difference, because these are nothing to do with feelings. You are a soul, like fact. And you'd say, okay, I'm not a soul. What? You know very well you're a soul. Why are you saying you're not a soul? You're lying to yourself. You don't really mean that, because you know very well you're a soul. So come on, wake up. You're a soul. Yeah, but you just start doing stuff like that. But when you're dealing with information, it's quite difficult to go against it because you already know that it's true, right? You're a soul, you reincarnated quite a lot of times, you were selected by God, and you can't say, oh, well, he didn't know what he was doing. What? Do you think he's that much stupid? What is this? You see, so there's so many arguments that you can use to combat this kind of antagonistic thought to information. But you can't do that to antagonistic thought in regard to feelings, you see. So because of that, these actual gyan is once you've accepted it, once you've understood it, once you work with it, it's like an instrument. It's a machine that you can use to get yourself into a decent state of consciousness. When you just rely on feeling good, then you're really looking for some external energy to make you feel good, and you're not grinding your own ingredients. You know this expression, grind your own ingredients? So your basic ingredients is the murli, but if you don't work with them, you don't cook your food, then you're not going to be nourished on uncooked food. Sometimes he says, the murli is grass. You are cows. So the relationship between a cow and grass is that you start chewing it in the morning and you chew it all day long. Cows don't chew up and down, they chew sideways. And by the time you've finished, you're in a position to produce a bit of milk because you nurtured yourself. And then you have milk instead of grass. You've transformed the grass into milk. And then you have an opportunity to work with the milk. He calls it churning. So you churn the milk, and when you do that, you separate the water from the fat. And then you have the fat. And this you have to cook. So you have to cook that churned fat, and you get ghee, which is the clarified butter. And this ghee is going to last you for a very long time, because milk will last you a day or two, right? Butter will last you a week or two, but this clarified butter will last you for a year or two. So it's your job to do the work of taking the basic ingredients and turning it into material that's going to sustain you. And that is called self-sufficiency. And if you are a person who's self-sufficient, you also have something that can be distributed to others. And so then you can increase your wealth. Partly you're self-sufficient, partly you're distributing, so you increase your wealth, which means that you're really seriously taking care of yourself. You're doing everything that you can do to keep yourself in a high stage and keep your wealth moving in, so that when any big expense comes, you're totally able to handle it. And believe me, big expenses do come. Suddenly you have an accident, got to go to hospital, then what? It's expensive. If you have insurance, what is the insurance that we have? The insurance is you do all sorts of things, karma with Baba, so that he has to help you when needed. But there's no free lunch. And the religious people think that, oh, God will look after me whether I do my side of the bargain or not. He says, no. It makes a difference. You do your side, he do his side. And when you get born, okay, you're fully dependent, but you don't remain an infant very long. You grow up and you become part of the business. He's your father, and there is a family business, so you have to help to run the business of making the world into heaven. So if you do your part, then you get bonuses and salary and God knows what else, lots of things. So that will keep you going nicely. You see how it works? And all of this is included in yoga, which is why in the Gita it says yoga means skill in action. It means you understand the philosophy of karma to the point where everything you do is profitable. Thoughts, words, actions, you understand minute by minute, second by second, what's worthwhile, it means profitable, and you do that, and then you get wealthy. And if you go into the religious mindedness, you doing prayers, oh God, sort me out, oh God, fix my problem, oh God, I feel tired, make me have some energy, do this, do that. Religious people do that. Excuse me. But if you are his child, his student, he's your guru, then you become partners with him. And you don't act like a baby. You see how it works? So all these obstacles that come, sometimes they're because you put yourself in debt. But a lot of times, if you're somebody who's really moving forward nicely, taking care of yourself, then the obstacles are put there as tests. And I believe that it's worthwhile considering all obstacles as tests rather than signs that you did something not quite right. Because if you take it as a punishment, then it means you're telling yourself that you need to be punished. But if you tell yourself, no, I'm on my way forward, I don't get punished, but I get tests. So you're ready for tests, because tests means you're a competent student and you're ready to go to the next level and the next and the next, because you always get exams between the levels, right? One kind of obstacle that comes is you, when you're going along the path of Raj Yoga, you're going along like flat, and then you hit a barrier. You can't get through it. Because it means that your time on that level is over. You need to go up to the next level. So you have to do effort to raise yourself up to the next level, and then your path is open on a higher level. And so there you get some stiff exams. They're not punishments. They feel the same way as a punishment, but they're actually a test. And the thing that's important is to recognize and discern, okay, I'm finished on this level, I have to go to the next level. I have no idea what the next level is, but I've got to crash against this wall in such a way that I get up to the next level, and then I'm on my way. So you have to sit with that test, whatever it is, some kind of big block, and just push against it, think about it, figure it out, what to do, what's going on, until you get a breakthrough. And then you're up there and off you go on your next level. Because Raj Yoga is not a smooth sailing down a motorway, no. You're going up a mountain, and every so often you arrive at chasms and glaciers and avalanches and perpendicular mountain that you have to go up, right? So this is like that. So, no, not when your path is flat, it's a sign to go up. When you hit a rock, you know, you arrive at a big a huge wall, 100 feet tall or 1,000 feet tall, and you can't go on because the wall's in the way. And so you have to go up. Going up is much more difficult than going along, but your way is stopped. So you have to do the work of getting yourself up there. And so you figure it out, what to do so that I can be on the next level. And no one's going to tell you what it is, because you have to figure it out yourself. These kinds of pilgrimage, journey, you arrive at obstacle. And so you have to figure out the way to get up and go again. I said that neglect is a situation that puts you in very great difficulties. If you are on this path and you are a person who has been badly neglected, then it means that you see the strength of you and the strength of the effect of your neglect. Weigh the two together and see how heavy is the weight of your power. And then see how heavy is the weight of the neglect. The neglect may weigh 50 tons. If you're weak and your power is 1 ton, won't work. But you look at yourself and see, okay, how heavy is the weight of my power? How am I going to figure out that, And there are tendencies when you have been neglected to be violent. So you may have tendencies to be violent or tendency to have no value for yourself or whatever. There's tendencies that come. So you have to resist those. If you're very powerful, you will resist it. It's not a question of how to do it. You figure out how. Everybody has to figure out their own way. But what's important, I think, is to try to understand how powerful you are and give yourself a message about this. For example, you say to yourself, okay, here I am. I'm a powerful soul, right? I'm selected by God. Yes? Good. And he says, you come to my school and I will make you into a ruler of the world. That means he considers you powerful. That means you have to consider yourself powerful. And on the other hand, neglect comes along and says, this problem, that problem, this character defect, that character defect, whatever. And you put yourself in the face of these things and you tell yourself, hey, I am a powerful soul, so I'm ready for this. I can handle this. And even if you can't, but you tell yourself you can, you make yourself able to do it. And then you do. So this is a combination of discipline, discernment, firm, determined thought. You bring together all the equipment. These are all weapons. So you're going for a war, you get yourself well and properly equipped. In war, there are different kinds of soldiers, right? And so you have ordinary soldiers who have ordinary training and they can handle ordinary problems. But then you have other people, they're special forces, and they have, in their equipment, they have very good shoes, need good shoes. You have many different kinds of weapons. You got a hand grenade, you've got a knife, you've got an automatic weapon, you've got a parachute, you've got, as much as possible. You've got body armor and you've got special kind of infrared torch and a normal torch. And you're very, very skilled and you're very strong. You can run really fast and you can shoot somebody 5 miles away accurately. You need to be somebody like that. And then you say, okay, this is called Maharati. Here Baba talks about the Maharati, the elephant rider, the cavalry, and the infantry. So when you come onto the battlefield, you have some options about how skilled of a warrior do you decide to be. And then you make yourself into a big warrior, right? The word anger is a word for when some sort of violent energy comes up that's out of control. If you're a warrior, you want that energy in control. Same energy, but you are the master of it. And so you must not be afraid of it. In a couple of days ago, we had the same thing, and we were talking about dragons. Okay, so in a sense, anger is like you have a dragon, you know. And some people, they say, oh, you know, it's really bad to have dragons. Go get rid of your dragons. And then how are you going to fly? You don't have a dragon. You need dragon with plenty of fire and all these things, but you have to be the master of it. But if your dragon is master of you, then it's a problem. If you master of it, then it's very useful. So I think sometimes you may have a lot of very powerful so-called negative energy, but your relationship with it can change. Your relationship with it can be that this is not anger, this is force. Right? Same thing, different word. This is force, this is power. And I need this power for certain functions. And so you see that you have it, but you haven't understood it, you haven't learned to master it, you're afraid of it, everybody thinks it's bad, blah, blah, blah. You buy into that narrative, but you don't have to. You can say, okay, I have this energy and I can use it according to my will to achieve something that Baba wants me to achieve, you know, or that he's offering you to achieve. And then you wouldn't call it anger, you call it firm determination. He does that, see. The problem is this word vices, this word right and wrong, this word should, have to, ought, must. You see, and all this comes from religious approach. But if you come from what I call spiritual approach, then you are looking at it very differently. And it's not something that you are limited by, but something that you take advantage of. And then you see that it's actually good. In a sense, all these energies are neutral. How you relate to them determines whether they're good or bad. So you have a lot of options. Yeah. Yes, it is important to discern. And most of the reason is conditioning, conventional morality, messages that you receive about how you are not okay, although you are okay, because external people, society, want to control you and use you for their own convenience. Well, this is where it comes from, always. You see, because of the way the society in the Iron Age and the religions and the narrative and all of this is structured, is to get you to give away your power, to get you to interpret things in a way that is bad for you, good for them, you see. And mostly it's that. And once you understand this principle, and then you look into yourself and you see how you have heard the messages, how you have accepted the identity that was imposed on you, it's all connected with that. Because the same circumstances with a different mentality is not negative, because of how you understand what you are, who you are. See? And this is why this, what I call religion, is has a very toxic effect, because it puts you into a box that you don't belong in, and it disempowers you. You see? So you get back to this thing what I was talking about, ego, flip-flop between superiority and inferiority, and then you don't understand what's possible. You see, if we go back to Kalevala, you've got all these characters, and the wise one is called Vainamoinen, right? And he has every imaginable bad thing happen to him. But he's wise. And so he handles it well and doesn't get disempowered because his interpretation is wise. Then you get somebody like Lemminkainen, who's arrogant, and he gets into trouble too. And usually somebody like Vainamoinen or his mom gets him out of it. But he's not such a big hero as Vainamoinen because he's not wise, he's arrogant. Then you get Ilmarinen. He's also got some problems because he's also arrogant. And then you have to look at yourself where the ego is operating, where it's superiority, where it's inferiority. Understand the flip-flop. And then the alternative to that is, what is wisdom? The circumstances are the same, but your approach to it can be either from this ego thing or from wisdom. And when you have more and more information about spirituality, which we are studying, then you have so much material that you can apply to yourself, where you could take an arrogant approach, but you choose not to, you see. Because in the Kalevala, all of these people who do stupid things, they were all advised to do wise things, but they didn't want to. And then they got in trouble. It's very interesting how the story plays out. Very, very interesting. And it applies to life now very much, very nicely, you know. And you can really compare your situation to any one of the characters, because they have lots of different characters in all kinds of situations. And you may be able to identify with one of these characters and see yourself, are you behaving like Vainamoinen? You could. Are you behaving like Kullervo? You could. But then what happens to you if you do that? What happens to you if you're wise? You decide, you see, because you don't know who you are. You make yourself who you are by what your choices are. This is quite important, yeah? The things that happened to Vainamoinen, none of these people could handle, not at all. So when you take the course of wisdom, yes, you will get very big challenges. The wiser you are, the bigger your challenges will be, because, you know, God says, you think you're wise, let me just check. Put you through this test, that test, the other. This is why I say all of these obstacles, if you consider them as tests, it's like choosing to be the wise person. And so puts you in a position of power relative to your situation, as compared with a position of weakness if you think it's punishment. You see, it's the same thing, but how you think about it, you have choice. You know. And even if you make mistakes, everybody makes mistakes, you learn from them, you recover from them, you get yourself up and you keep moving. And a good warrior has plenty of scars, but he still wins the war. Okay, I'm going to stop there, and it's the end of our session today, and we have something.